The sun beat down on the parched earth, but beneath the gnarled oak, a different kind of heat was rising. A man, crouched in the hollow of a winepress, strained at the threshing floor, not out in the open field where such work belonged, but hidden, desperate. His name was Gideon, and his people, Israel, lived under the iron fist of the Midianites. For 7 years, invaders had swept through their land like locusts, devouring crops, stealing livestock, leaving desolation in their wake. Fear was a constant companion, a heavy cloak draped over every heart. Gideon, thrumming with anxiety, was merely trying to salvage a handful of grain to feed his family. Then a voice, calm and unhurried, cut through the oppressive silence. "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Gideon, startled, looked up. An angel of the Lord sat beneath the oak, radiating an authority that contrasted sharply with Gideon's own weariness and despair. "Mighty warrior?" Gideon scoffed, perhaps a bitter laugh escaping him. "If the Lord is with us, why has all this happened? Where are all his wonders? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family." This exchange, right at the outset of Judges chapter 7, sets the stage for a profound truth. God's perspective on strength is often radically different from our own. Where Gideon saw weakness, insignificance, and a crushing lack of ability, God saw a mighty warrior. It wasn't about Gideon's inherent power, but about the power God intended to display through him. Think for a moment about those moments in your own life when you felt like Gideon, hidden, small, overwhelmed by circumstances, convinced that you are the absolute least equipped for any challenge ahead. Perhaps it's a daunting task at work, a complex family situation, a personal struggle you feel ill-equipped to face. It's in those very moments when we are most acutely aware of our limitations that God often chooses to begin his most remarkable work. God commanded Gideon to raise an army to confront the Midianites, and Gideon, perhaps still reeling from the angelic encounter, managed to gather an impressive 32,000 men. 32,000! To Gideon, this must have felt like a significant step, a measurable strength. But God had a different plan. "The people with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hand," the Lord told Gideon, "lest Israel boast over me, saying, 'My own hand has saved me.'" Pause here. This is crucial. God understood the human heart's tendency to take credit, to attribute victory to its own efforts. If 32,000 men won, they might say, "We did it." God wanted to ensure that his glory and his alone was evident. So, the first reduction. Those who were fearful and trembling were told to return home. 22,000 men left. Can you imagine the morale hit? From 32,000 to just 10,000? The odds already stacked against them seemed to lengthen further. Gideon, leading this dwindling force, must have felt his own doubts intensify. But God wasn't finished. 10,000 men were still too many. God instructed Gideon to take the men down to the water, and there God revealed the final test. Only those who lapped water from their hands like a dog, quickly, alertly, would be chosen. Those who knelt down to drink, leisurely and perhaps less vigilant, were sent home. When the dust settled, the number was staggering. Only 300 men remained. From 32,000 down to 300. This was not just a reduction, it was an act of divine absurdity from a human perspective. How could 300 men, armed with nothing but their meager resolve, defeat an army that numbered in the hundreds of thousands? This is where faith becomes not just a belief, but an audacious act of trust. God was making it undeniably clear. This victory would not be achieved by human might, but by divine power alone. Gideon's weakness and the weakness of his tiny army was becoming the perfect canvas for God's strength. On the night of the battle, Gideon, still battling his own fears, was encouraged by God to go down to the Midianite camp. There, he overheard a soldier recounting a dream about a barley loaf rolling into the camp and overturning a tent. The interpretation given by another soldier was clear. This can be nothing else but the sword of Gideon. Into his hand God has given Midian and all the camp. Hearing this, Gideon worshipped God, his spirit renewed. Returning to his 300 men, Gideon gave them their strange non-military instructions. Each man was to carry a trumpet, an empty jar, and a torch hidden inside the jar. No swords, no shields, just common everyday items transformed into instruments of God's plan. At the appointed time, in the dead of night, Gideon's men surrounded the vast Midianite camp. At Gideon's signal, they simultaneously blew their trumpets, smashed their jars, revealing the blazing torches, and cried out, "A sword for the Lord and for Gideon!" The effect was instantaneous and overwhelming. The sudden, deafening noise of 300 trumpets, the blinding flash of 300 torches appearing from nowhere, and the unified shout echoing through the darkness sent the Midianite army into a panicked frenzy. Believing they were surrounded by an immense force, they turned their swords on one another, fleeing in disarray. God fought for Gideon, not with conventional weapons, but through confusion, light, and sound. The victory was complete, resounding, and undeniably God's. Gideon and his 300 didn't win it. God won it through them. Their weakness, their smallness, became the very crucible in which God's perfect strength was made manifest. This is the Gideon Principle. God's strength is perfected in weakness. It's a profound truth that continues to resonate today. When we feel overwhelmed, inadequate, or ill-equipped for the tasks before us, it's precisely then that we are invited to lean fully into God's limitless power. He doesn't ask us to be strong enough, wise enough, or resourceful enough. He asks us to be willing enough. He asks for humble, trusting hearts that are ready to step out in faith, even when the odds seem insurmountable and our own abilities seem negligible. Perhaps you're facing a Goliath-sized challenge right now, feeling like a lone, trembling soul in a winepress. Take heart from Gideon's story. Surrender your perceived strengths, your anxieties, and especially your weaknesses into God's capable hands. Trust that He can accomplish great and impossible things, not just despite your limitations, but often through them for His glory alone. Your weakness is not a hindrance to God. It's an invitation for Him to display His power. It's the very space where His victory can shine brightest. If this story has resonated with you, if it's encouraged you to trust God more deeply in your own areas of weakness, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Share in the comments below how this principle applies to your life, or perhaps a time when God showed up powerfully in your moments of greatest weakness. If you found this reflection helpful, consider subscribing or following for more stories that illuminate God's timeless truths. Until next time, may you find strength in His perfect and unfailing power.